In last lecture, we have discussed about digestion in human being, right? In that we have discussed about mouth, stomach, small intestine, large intestine and anus. Particularly in this small intestine, we have discussed about absorption. The food which we eat, it will get digested into stomach, right? And that digested nutrients, it will get absorbed in small intestine by villi. Okay, so now as we have taken the nutrients, right? So now we have to use that nutrients to obtain energy. So for that we will have a process that is called respiration. Now let's understand that what is called respiration. What is the process? Respiration. Okay, in respiration, first of all, see, we have taken the nutrients from the food, right? Now the nutrients which we have taken, oxidation of that nutrients at the cellular level, it is called respiration. So we can say like this, that it is defined as the process of biochemical oxidation of nutrients at cellular level, right? And this respiration process, which is oxidation of nutrient, it happens in presence of some specific enzymes and at optimum temperature, right? So the process of respiration will take place in presence of specific enzymes and at optimum temperature. Enzymes means we know that it will not going to take part in the reaction. It is just like a catalyst, right? But in chemistry we are calling it as catalyst, but when we are talking about biochemical reaction, so in such cases the catalyst, it is known as enzyme. See, in presence of this enzyme and in optimum temperature, generally in cell, it release energy, right? So that process is our respiration, right? It is a catabolic process in which exchange of gas take place between the body and the outside environment, right? So if we want to write this in a complete way, we can write it like this, that if we have taken food, that food, it get oxidized, right? So food, and when the food get oxidized, it will remove carbon dioxide, CO2 plus water plus energy. So ultimately this is the concept of respiration. In respiration, in presence of specific enzyme and at optimum temperature, energy is going to get released. The nutrients which we have taken in form of food, that nutrients, it is going to get oxidized, which will be resulted into carbon dioxide, which we throw out by the process of exhalation, water and energy, right? So the another concept, what is called respiratory substrates, right? So how we can define that, what is called respiratory substance? So the organic substances undergoing oxidative breakdown during process of respiration is called respiratory substrate, right? So during the process of respiration, such type of substrate will get oxidized and it will give us energy. Here we can take example of glucose, right? So we know that by oxidizing glucose we are getting energy. Formula of glucose will be C6H12O6, right? So it's clear now that what is called respiration, what happens in respiration, what is called respiratory substrates. Now see, this biochemical oxidation of nutrients, it will take place in different ways, right? There will be different types in which this oxidation will take place. Some organisms use oxygen to break down the glucose completely into carbon dioxide and water, while some they do not require oxygen, right? So according to that we will have two types here, okay? Some will require oxygen, and in some process of respiration they don't require oxygen, right? So we can say that there will be another topic, types of respiration. In some case we require oxygen, and in some oxygen is not necessary. So according to that we will have aerobic respiration, and the second one we will have anaerobic respiration, right? So what is done in aerobic respiration and how anaerobic respiration is done, that we are going to discuss, right? So again, what is concept of respiration? It is a process of biochemical oxidation of nutrients at cellular level. It is done in presence of specific enzymes and at optimum temperature. Generally we can write it like this, that food which we take, okay, the nutrients, it will get oxidized, it will give us carbon dioxide, water and energy, okay? And the substance which is oxidized, right, here the food, it is oxidized. So generally in food we are having glucose. So glucose here is an example of respiratory substrates. During this respiration, some requires oxygen, so that will be our aerobic type of respiration, and some they don't require oxygen for the breakdown, okay? So that will be considered as anaerobic respiration. Now let's check that aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration in detail. Let's start from the first one, that is called aerobic respiration. Here during aerobic respiration we are also trying to understand that during aerobic respiration and during anaerobic respiration how the breakdown of glucose is done. So let's start first. The first type, that will be aerobic respiration. Now let's see what happens in aerobic respiration. See, first of all, it must be clear in our mind that in aerobic respiration oxygen is present, and as the oxygen is present, large amount of energy is released. So during aerobic respiration oxygen is present, so the respiration which is done in presence of oxygen, that is called aerobic respiration. During aerobic respiration, large amount of energy it is going to get released by breakdown of food substances, right? If we want to give the equation of it, we can give it like this, that if we have glucose, which is our carbon molecule, this it will get converted into pyruvate plus energy. This it will get react with oxygen and will result into carbon dioxide plus 6 water plus 38 ATP, that is currency of energy, right? Okay, now let's try to understand this. See, first of all, we know that glucose, it is C6H12O6. So here we have 6 carbons, so here we can call it like this, C6. So 6 carbon molecule of glucose, right? In cytoplasm, it will be converted into pyruvate. And what is pyruvate? Pyruvate, it is C3, means it is 3 carbon containing molecule. So your 6 carbon containing molecule, it will be converted into 3 carbon containing molecule, and the another 3 carbon, it will be in form of energy. Now this pyruvate, it will get oxidized in mitochondria, it will get oxidized and it will remove carbon dioxide, water, and 38 ATP. We know the full form of ATP, that is adenosine triphosphate, right? So this way respiration is done. Here oxygen is present, so it is called aerobic respiration. Okay, let's try to understand it again. We are having 6 carbon containing glucose molecule. It will get oxidized in cytoplasm into 3 carbon containing pyruvate, and energy will be released. This pyruvate, in presence of oxygen in mitochondria, it will convert into carbon dioxide, right? Here we are having 1 carbon containing, right? So ultimately here we will have almost 3 mole of carbon dioxide plus water and plus 38 ATP of energy. Okay, so this way we can understand the breakdown of glucose in aerobic respiration. Okay, see here during this process, we know that the process, it will start into cytoplasm and it will be continue into mitochondria. Water and carbon dioxide are produced as the waste product, right? So here we can say carbon dioxide and water, it will be present as our waste product. Okay, and during that energy is released. The release of energy, it is too much in aerobic respiration. Now let's think about anaerobic respiration. Somehow the process will be like this only. Repeating again, aerobic respiration, it is done in presence of oxygen. Large amount of energy is released. 6 carbon containing glucose will convert it into 3 carbon containing pyruvate. Energy will be released. This 3 carbon containing pyruvate, it will oxidize into carbon dioxide, water, and energy is released. So these energies are used for our life purposes. Now let's understand that how anaerobic process, right, anaerobic respiration is done. So let's start. First of all, understand that in anaerobic respiration there will be 2 types. One will be alcoholic fermentation and the another will be lactic acid fermentation. Here alcoholic fermentation, in that we will get alcohol, right, and in lactic acid fermentation we will get lactic acid. Let's see it in detail. First of all, as we know that in aerobic oxygen is present, so in anaerobic oxygen is absent. So as oxygen is absent, so small amount of energy is released, right? Generally it take place in yeast, bacteria, and in human muscles. Okay, now anaerobic respiration is termed as, we can also say that it is termed as fermentation in microorganisms, right? Okay, on the basis of that we can categorize this anaerobic respiration into two types. First is alcoholic fermentation, and the second one, it is our lactic acid fermentation. Now let's see what happens in alcoholic fermentation and what happens in lactic acid fermentation. In anaerobic respiration there will be absence of oxygen, so small amount of energy will be released, right? Yeast, bacteria, and in human muscles it will be formed. It is a fermentation of microorganisms. According to its fermentation property, we can categorize into two parts: alcoholic fermentation and lactic acid fermentation. Now let's understand first alcoholic. Here we have to correct it. Alcoholic fermentation. See, in alcoholic fermentation it is an incomplete breakdown of sugar, right? So here we will have sugar, it will get breakdown, but it is incomplete breakdown of sugar into ethanol. It's one type of alcohol, and carbon dioxide and energy, right? So in alcoholic fermentation, sugar, it will do incomplete breakdown and will result into ethanol, carbon dioxide and energy. Now let's try to understand it. What happens during alcohol fermentation? Again, this is done in absence of oxygen, right? So let's try. See, first we will have glucose, which is at C6, right? 6 carbon containing are glucose. Here we can write like this, that's C6, 6 carbon containing are molecule. This glucose molecule, this will also done in cytoplasm. In cytoplasm it will convert it into pyruvate. Again, pyruvate, it is a C3, 3 carbon containing molecule, plus energy will be released. Now here in aerobic it was done in presence of oxygen. Here it is going to be done in absence of oxygen. So we can say like this, that here in absence of O2, where in yeast, in absence of oxygen and in yeast, it will give us 2 ethanol plus 2 carbon dioxide plus 2 ATP. Now it must be clear that, see here, ethanol itself, it is 2 carbon containing molecule. Ethanol, it is 2 carbon containing molecule, right? Carbon dioxide and 2 mole of ATP, right? So this is breakdown of glucose in alcoholic fermentation, right, which results into ethanol, carbon dioxide and energy. Same way we can also understand about the lactic acid fermentation. Now let's see what happens in lactic acid fermentation. Remember beta, Here, this alcoholic fermentation, it is also a type of anaerobic respiration. So this is a part of anaerobic respiration. You can also write this as anaerobic respiration. In this type of anaerobic respiration, we are getting product of ethanol. Now, let's see. If we talk about lactic acid fermentation, so what will be product in lactic acid fermentation? So our second type is our lactic acid fermentation. Okay, let's see what happens in lactic acid fermentation. In lactic acid fermentation also, there will be incomplete breakdown of glucose, right? So again, sugar, it will be incomplete breakdown into what we will get? We will get lactic acid plus energy, right? And generally it is done in some bacteria, right? Okay, now let's try to understand it by a equation. Okay, in that equation, as we discussed earlier, that what we will have first glucose. Glucose means it is C6. Glucose means that is our C6, 6 carbon containing molecule. This glucose, it get converted into pyruvate. This pyruvate, it is 3 carbon containing molecule plus energy. See, in this process there is lack of oxygen, right? So in lack of oxygen, and in muscle cells, what we will get? We will get 2 mole of lactic acid plus 2 ATP of energy, right? So simple. This is the equation of breakdown of glucose in lactic acid fermentation. Here also there is incomplete breakdown, so the portion of energy which we will get, it will be very less. Now again, just let's revise it, and then we can go for the conclusion of aerobic and anaerobic. As we discussed that in respiration, oxidation, 2 types of respiration, aerobic and anaerobic. First we have discussed about aerobic respiration, that is done in presence of oxygen, so large amount of energy will be released. It will be complete breakdown of sugar, so here we are getting more amount of energy, right? 6 carbon containing molecule will get converted into 3 carbon containing pyruvate, and later on it will give us carbon dioxide and water. Now this was for aerobic. For anaerobic type of respiration, it is done in absence of oxygen, so there will be incomplete breakdown of sugar, so less amount of energy will be released. In bacteria, yeast and human muscle it happens. If we talk it in detail, then we will know that there will be alcoholic fermentation and lactic acid fermentation. We have just divided this anaerobic respiration according to its product. If we are getting ethanol as a product, so that is our alcoholic fermentation, and if we are getting lactic acid as a product, so that is our lactic acid fermentation. See, generally in alcoholic fermentation we will see that it is done in yeast, means when our medium is of yeast, right? In plants generally this alcoholic fermentation will happen. But if we talk about animals, right? So here you can see that in muscle cells we will get lactic acid. So this is also one type of anaerobic respiration. Now if we want to understand this in detail, right, we can try to understand it with the help of a single chart which here we are going to prepare. So that will be conclusion, that will be also the conclusion of our whole topic. So let's start. Okay, as we discussed that first we will have glucose, And what is glucose? It is 6 carbon containing C6. It is 6 carbon containing molecule. Now this glucose will get converted into pyruvate. This is also fixed that every time glucose will get converted into 3 carbon containing pyruvate. Now in this process energy is also going to get released. Now from this pyruvate we will have different options. Now let us discuss about the different options. See, first option we will have that there is absence of oxygen. Second option we will have that there is lack of oxygen. And the third option which we will have that there is complete presence of oxygen. Now let's try to understand it. What happens if we take the first case in which there is absence of oxygen, right? And generally in that we are taking in medium of yeast, as we have discussed, right, that if there is medium of yeast and if there is absence of oxygen, so we will have alcoholic fermentation. So in that cases we will get ethanol, which is 2 carbon containing molecules plus carbon dioxide plus energy, right? So here ethanol, it is C2, 2 carbon containing. If you want to write its formula, we can write it like this: C2H5OH. Okay, now let's think about the second. In second, as we discussed, that first is in absence of oxygen, second that is lack of oxygen, right? Now let's see what happened in lack of oxygen. If it is lack of oxygen, so it is done in muscle cells. As we discussed that if it is done in muscle cells and in lack of oxygen, so simple, what we will get, we have discussed this in lactic acid fermentation, that here we are going to get lactic acid plus energy. Okay, now the third one, see, this both will be of anaerobic respiration. This is our alcoholic fermentation and this is our lactic acid fermentation. Okay, now this lactic acid, it is 3 carbon containing, so we can write like this, C3. You will study this all in detail in higher standards, but right now for a breakdown of glucose we will take that ethanol is 2 carbon, how it is done and how it is balanced, that we are not going to understand in our class 10, right? In higher standards we will discuss about it. Now the third one, that is done in presence of oxygen, and in presence of oxygen it is done in mitochondria. See, in presence of oxygen and in mitochondria, that if there is breakdown of this glucose, so what we will get, we will get carbon dioxide plus water and plus energy, right? And here the portion of energy is very high. Here we are getting 2 ATP of energy, here also we are getting 2 ATP of energy, but here we are getting almost 38 ATP of energy, because this is a complete breakdown of glucose. So this way, by this whole chart we can understand that what is respiration, what is aerobic respiration, what is anaerobic respiration, in that there will be absence of oxygen and lack of oxygen, medium of yeast, medium of muscles. We can also place a difference of aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration, right? So this way respiration take place. During this respiration, energy is released, and this energy is used in repairing of our cell, in producing new cells, right? So all of the life process, the energy which we are getting, it is from the concept of respiration. So the food which we take, the nutrients which we have, it will get oxidized and it will release energy. That process is respiration. It will be of two types: aerobic respiration, anaerobic respiration. This particular thing, right, this particular option is for aerobic respiration, and this both is for anaerobic respiration, right? So we will note down here that this part, it is for aerobic respiration, right? And this part, that is for, it will be for anaerobic respiration. Okay, so this way we can understand it. So the question can be asked to you that breakdown of glucose in presence of oxygen, in lack of oxygen, or in absence of oxygen. So we can write it. Okay.